Shalom and hello to anyone that's there already. If you are viewing, go ahead and sign in a little bit, say hello, give me a thumbs up, do something that'll let me know that you're there. We'll be beginning right at 3 o'clock. Yeah. Again, if you're there, say hello. Let me know that you're there. I appreciate that. Check 1, 2. We're waiting just for a few more folks to sign on, and we'll get started right at 3 o'clock. Waiting for folks to sign on. I want to welcome anyone that's already on. We're beginning our study at 3 o'clock. Looking forward to being with you today. Thank you for saying hello when you sign in. Letting us know that you're there. Studying today the book of Bereshit of Genesis chapter 37, verse 23 through 28. Okay, there you are. Hello to the Olsons. Hello to the Perkins. Hello to Brian and the Cars. Glad that you guys could be with us. We'll start here in about 30 seconds. Again, we're going to be reading from Bereshit or Genesis 37, verse 23 through 28. Glad you guys are here. Looking for others to join us as well. So Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Glad that you could come and be a part of this virtual gathering. We're very much anticipating the possibility of being live and in person next week at our normal location. We will investigate a little bit more on that, but I think things are clearing up legally so that we can do so. And just pray, Father, give us some wisdom and we can actually get together. Love to see your live and in-person face, even if it's from behind a mask. We'll be glad to get together. Let's go to the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter number 37. Let's read from beginning with verse number 23. And so it came to be when Joseph had come to his brothers that they stripped Joseph of his robe, the long robe which was on him. And they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. They sat down to eat a meal, and they lifted their eyes and looked and saw a company of Ishmaelites come in from Gilead with their camels bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to take them down to Mitzrayim. And Yehudah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our flesh. And his brothers listened, and Midianite traders passed by. So they pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they took Joseph to Mitzrayim. Today I want to talk about the necessities of exile. In particular, we're talking about those things that are necessary for you and I while we are in exile. We've all often heard it said that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. We use this practical truth to simplify our efforts and save ourselves as much time as possible. Why take unnecessary detours, spending hours headed to a destination that is not our destination or not desirable, that serves no reasonable purpose? Normally, we seek to live as efficiently as possible, choosing the shortest lines at the checkout counters, eating food at a fast food restaurant just because, well, it's convenient or it's on the way, and taking every shortcut whenever possible. That's the American way. But more often than not, it's not Yah's way. Yah enjoys sending us the long way around. Our master seeks the most beneficial journey for us, not the shortest, the most beneficial, including all of the important encounters, all the needed conversations, and whether we like it or not, all the struggles, all the tests, and all the moments where things are determined to be impossible. Yet Yah is not some maniacal or cruel taskmaster gaining some joy out of our misery, but rather he's the faithful Father who chooses not to rescue us immediately after hearing our cry of pain and suffering, encouraging us rather to find the strength that he has already given to us and to rise up. There is a point in time when a child is small, and at the moment of their falling or hitting themselves, they cry out. And at that moment, we want to rush to them and fix it. But there is also a point in time where we encourage the child, you're all right, get up, come on, you can do this. It's not hurt that bad. You'll be all right. And that encouragement is where you and I are now. We're no longer needing Yah to immediately run to our rescue and fix everything. He's wanting to encourage us to rise up, seize the ability that's within us, deal with the issue that is at hand, and get beyond it. Let's understand that he allows us enough discomfort to teach us to be resilient, to be resourceful, and to remember that his plan for us is still intact. When a Yah-intended crisis, not just every crisis, but when there is a crisis in our lives by Yah's design, and yes, he allows those things to happen, oftentimes the resources that we need are already supplied, but very likely they're not within easy reach or in a place of convenient sight. By that, I mean that we most probably are going to need to move in some means, to reach out and stretch ourselves by some means to find that resource. Or we may need to take some time to look intensely and to use Yah-given focus to see what it is that he has provided for us. Our time in exile, and I want to reiterate this. Yes, we are currently in a state of exile. We are Americans. We are Virginians. We are, and many of us, we are individuals that have been raised generationally in this nation. But when we understand who we are in the spirit, in the course of Hebrew history, we understand that we have been grafted into Am Israel, and at that moment in time, we have become exiles, even in our native homeland. Our time here includes the purpose of gaining awareness of Yah's plans and his goals, of growing in maturity to be able to possess our possessions, and the recognizing of others who are vital in his eyes and who will become vital in our own eyes and are about to be made part of his people. In the days ahead, you and I may find compatriots and partners who will become valuable to us and who will have no knowledge of these people at present. We may not see them yet. Matter of fact, there may be some folks that you would already have written off, some folks that you would have already discounted. And they may show up in the days ahead, and Yah say, now it's time for them to become vital to you. Let's understand this. Yah is building his nation, Am Israel. He is raising up his people in exile. He is numbering us. He is measuring us. He is destining us. He is preparing us. He is growing us to a place that we're going to become a unified and solidified people, all with a heart for him, with many talents, viewpoints, perspectives, and answers for the questions. But nonetheless, we will become this cohesive people he calls Israel. Now, in order for the nation of Am Israel to become a reality, it is vital and necessary in the storyline of our reading today for Joseph to be in Mitzrayim. If they're going to grow beyond a family and become a nation, then Joseph has to leave the family and go to Mitzrayim. And he has to be there at a key point of time. He is destined for a certain moment to be raised up and become significant and instrumental. But he has to be there long enough to be made ready for that moment. And he can't be exposed to that moment too early. Timing is crucial. It's very, very important that Joseph be prepared for his moment of time, and he is not ready yet. Matter of fact, he can't be made ready at home. He has to move out. Many years ago, just about to graduate from high school, many, many years ago, I had filled out a questionnaire and expressed some interest in electronics. At that time, I was wiring speakers into my automobile and adding more speakers for more volume. And I considered that electronics. I was intrigued by all of that. And a man showed up from Bell and Howell out of Florida, I think it was, and trying to get me to commit to coming to their center and learning electronics with them. I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't know that I had that much interest in electronics. It was more of a curiosity than a passion. And before that man left, he looked at me. He said, "You're not ready to cut your mama's apron strings." Well, I guess he was angry that he had spent that much time in our home and to no avail. So he hit one last shot across my bow and tried to shame me into signing on with him. But he was right in some regard. I was comfortable at home and saw no need of packing up and running off to a place I didn't have any solidified interest in. There was a time where we had to move from Martinsville and cut those apron strings and make the break. All of us do. And it's time for you and I to begin to look at this place of exile and anticipate the time in the future where we will make the break. Until then, we need to be preparing ourselves for that instrumental moment of time. Now, Joseph believed it was vital and necessary for him to be with his family, to be their leader, and to help them be their best. But Joseph's plans and his ideas were not the same as Yah's. Yah even used the family dysfunction with all of their jealousy and rivalry to establish his will and in the end bring healing and restoration for them. He took what was imperfect, matter of fact, greatly flawed, and used as a part of the process to bring about the healing and restoration, not only of the family, but of the earth. It's unbelievable what he can do. And included in this storyline of these incredible events are little clues and little nuggets that reveal symbolically that Yah has things under his control, including some coincidences that bring key players to brokenness and growth. Realizing that the Torah doesn't include anything that is unnecessary, nor does it leave out anything that is needed, we might question what importance some of these items play when they're not mentioned again in the narrative. Why have them here and included in those little nuggets that I believe reveal part of Yah's plan for Joseph while he's in Mitzrayim are those things that are listed in verse number 25. Look again. What does it say? It says that they saw a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, and then this seeming unnecessary information. It really doesn't add anything to the storyline. It really doesn't color any white spots within the lines of the page. What are they here for? It says that they were bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to take them down to Mitzrayim. Then we find at the end of verse 28 that they took Joseph to Mitzrayim. The Ishmaelites took spices, balm, myrrh, and Joseph to Mitzrayim. That was their cargo. So what is it about spices and balm and myrrh that have anything to do with Joseph? Why is that necessary? Well, let's find out. Let's look at these three things, these three ingredients, and I want to see how they would apply to our time together in exile and what they're saying to us. The word that is translated as spices is nechot. If you were to write that down, you may spell it Nek-OHTH with the accent on the last part of the word nechot. This is possibly, it's said, to be something I had never heard of before we studied this, tragacanth gum. This particular gum or resin is used to heal intestinal issues, and it can be used to help one to adjust to climate. That is, that in the summertime, it can help you remain cool, and in the wintertime, help you to remain warm. So it is said. It is also possibly a spice called styrax, which is a resin that is burned to drive away snakes. Now that's interesting. If this is what we're talking about, driving away snakes, perhaps warding off serpents or spiritual serpents from one's presence. And it can also be used as an antiseptic and as a disinfectant. So the properties of these spices, while they're interesting, is how that they might apply. Joseph is being taken to a place where the climate may be different. He may need some help there. It could be that the food changes would cause his stomach and his intestines to have issues. He may indeed need to be disinfected when he is there. Those things aside, the meaning of the word at its root is smiting, rendering to a powder, breaking in pieces, a pounding. It is connected to the word nacha, which means to be stricken, to be wounded, to be broken, to be afflicted, to have a sad spirit. Now, definitely those words would describe Joseph and his current situation. In other words, the purpose of our exile is to bring about a smiting, a rendering to a place of being like powder, breaking into pieces, having a sense of being afflicted and broken down. The writer of Proverbs said in 15:13, a glad heart makes a good face, but by sorrow of heart, the spirit is broken. The same word here. Proverbs 17, verse 22. A rejoicing heart causes good healing, but a stricken spirit dries the bones. And once more in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 14. The spirit of a man sustains him in sickness, but who does bear a broken spirit? Now, why is it that Yah wants to break us? Why is it that brokenness is even necessary? The psalmist writes in chapter 51, verse 17, the slaughterings of Elohim are a broken spirit, a broken heart and crushed, O Yah, these you do not despise. While I know that verse is true, and while I know brokenheartedness has its place, I don't enjoy that verse very much. Yeshua said in Luke 20, verse 17 and 18, he looked at them and said, what then is this that has been written? The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone shall be broken, but on whomever it falls, he shall be pulverized. Another translation, be ground to powder. Let's look over in the book of Hebrews, chapter number 2. Hebrews chapter number 2. I want to read verse 9 and then drop down to verse number 14. Verse 9 says, speaking of Yeshua, but we do see him who was made for a little while lower than the messengers. Yeshua, because of the suffering of death, crowned with esteem and respect, that by the favor of Elohim he should taste death for everyone. verse 14 and following. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself similarly shared in the same, so that by means of his death he might destroy him having the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver those who throughout life were held in slavery by fear of death. For doubtless he does take hold of messengers, but he does take hold of the seed of Abraham. So in every way he had to become made like his brothers, in order to become a compassionate and trustworthy high priest in matters related to Elohim, to make atonement for the sins of the people. For in what he suffered, he himself being tried, he is able to help those who are tried. Yeshua endured what he calls you and I to endure. So whenever you come to a place where the pressure is on and you feel constricted and confined and as if there is no answer and this is an impossible place to survive, if you look closely, you may find right in front of you the footsteps of the Messiah that have already indicated he's already been there. He's already endured what it is that you're going through. He's already faced this bewilderment, and yet he overcame. And his overcoming is now available for you and I. I want to read to you a few lines from a book written in 1994, about 25 plus years ago. This book is called Broken in the Right Place. Let me see if I can get that without the glare of the light on it. There we go, I think. Broken in the Right Place. Alan Nelson wrote this. And in the first chapter, after describing the process of which he watched a stallion out in the Midwest being broken and tamed to the saddle, he makes these references, and he says, the last definition of the word broken in my dictionary reads, reduced to submission, tamed. He says, regardless of its potential, the untamed soul has limited capacity for constructive use. He says, an unbridled soul restricts God's work in a person's life. That kind of soul cannot be guided. Energy cannot be harnessed in the untamed state. He further states, people who have ever achieved significance, he says, I doubt that people who've ever achieved significance for a long period of time, who have been used productively by the Holy Spirit in ministry, have eluded this process. The soul of a person and its early and natural state is wildly undisciplined. So the undisciplined soul, the wild and the untamed soul, that's a soul that will refuse the bridle of Yah's word, that will refuse the harness of the Ruach HaKodesh. That soul will take the gifting and the calling of Elohim and use it for its own purpose and for its own self-worth. Rather than being a servant, they will become a tyrant. There's nothing more fearful than an anointed tyrant. Ask those who lived under the reign of King Shaul. Yah is looking for those that have tasted the bridle and the bit and know what it's like to be tamed through the process of brokenness, of having learned to endure. When you see a leader who bears scars, you know that they have come through the process and survived. And if they can still smile, and if they can still rejoice, and if they can still encourage others, then that should be a leader that you can trust, because their journey and their breaking has not made them bitter, but has made them stronger. Their soul has been tamed. The wildness has been worked out of them. Now they become constructive and usable in the hand of Almighty Yah. I picked up this book on several occasions, and I've yet to read it to the end because it speaks too hard to my being. And I endeavor to pick it up and start all over again and read until I find the end of the book. Because no matter how many times you go through the journey and you find the times of brokenness, there's always those residual parts that still stand in their defiance, still stand in their arrogance, still stand unable to work and to be used of Yah. Joseph had to be broken. There was no way around it. This young man was enormously talented. He was greatly gifted. He had more potential than he could possibly understand. But he thought that he was a fine, refined resource even as he was. But when his father put that coat upon him, that long robe of many colors, it promoted him beyond his maturity. He could not wear that coat to Mitzrayim. His dreams were profound, and they were indeed prophetic. The problem was his interpretation of these dreams was short-sighted and lacking in thorough application. Without brokenness, you don't understand the need of compassion. If you've never been broken, then you don't serve other people. If you've never been broken, if you've never been completely and thoroughly broken, if you've not been broken in the right places, you will never see beyond your own need. When we're talking about becoming broken, we're not talking about being utterly destroyed. We're talking about calculated, I'm going to say it this way, calculated blows to ourselves. Calculated bruises that show up and then heal. Wounds of necessity that reveal to us that there's something more insidious than a sore on our being. Rather, there is a root that has now been revealed that needs to be dug out. I can imagine that without the Mitzrayite element of Joseph's life, he very well may have led his family and fed them during a time of famine. He may have figured out a way to feed them. But without him being in Mitzrayim, the world would have starved. Now, I can also imagine that while he was riding that camel to Mitzrayim, maybe he was being led off in chains. I can imagine that either way, he would have multiple times turned and looked behind him to see if his brothers were coming to rescue him. He may have waited anxiously in Potiphar's house, day after day, waiting for a knock to come to the door to say, your father is here and he's bought you freedom. That never happened. When he was falsely accused and put in prison, he may have waited day after day for news to reach him that Potiphar's wife had confessed, or that servants would have revealed to him, it's not Joseph, it's your wife that is the problem. That day never came. None of those possibilities were ever carried out. The reality is that when it comes time for pressure, for brokenness, for revelation of what's really wrong beneath our glowing, cosmetically enhanced surface, is that we keep looking for the route of early deliverance. You and I keep looking for the expeditious shortcut that will cause this to be over in short order. We're looking for a way out. Yah is revealing to us a way through. It's not out, but through that he is offering us. I don't enjoy saying that very much. There's a potential for our days ahead, very close days ahead, and our nation. For riots and problems and issues and violence and shortages. Our nation is at a bad place in many ways. Some would say, well, then it's time to pack up and get ready to move out and to head across the pond to Israel. Not yet. Not yet. We're not escaping. We're not shortcutting out of this. Yah is going to take us the long way through this, because Yah is committed to his complete and full plan, not our shortcuts. That being said, there is a second item that was included, and that is the word that we translate as balm. In Hebrew, the word here is sore. If you were to transliterate that, T-Z-E-R-E with the accent on the final letter, sore. From this word, we understand that it is a balm from balsam, a balsam distillate that is used for the healing of wounds. In Jeremiah 51, verse 8, he says, Babel shall suddenly fall and be broken. Howl for her. Then he said, take sore, take balm for her pain, if so be she might be healed. Now, the context of that scripture is that Babel is being judged and not going to be healed. But the suggestion is that if one had this substance, that the pain could be subsided. Also in Jeremiah 8, verse 22, is there no balm, no sore in Gilead? Is there no physician or healer there? Why has the healing of the daughter of my people not come? I wrote a song many years ago, and in the second verse, these words are written: when does sickness become healing, and broken hearts begin to mend? When does heaven finally answer? Does anyone ever hear from him? And I wrote those words thinking of those that are despondent and broken down and at a place of suffering beyond what they anticipated. I wrote it especially for those that have suffered long enough, especially with sickness in their body, that they have become disillusioned, that they feel hopeless, that healing will never come to them. Everyone else can get healed. Everyone else can find relief. But for some unknown reason, it is Yah's intended will that I just endure pain. The rhetorical question that Yirmiyahu the prophet asked, is there no balm in Gilead? The answer is yes. Yes, there is. There is a healing balm, and it is available for us. Now, let's think about this. When we're wounded, when the sore or the wound is open and it's bleeding or it's oozing or it's festering, while it is open and while the pain is there, it gains our attention. That's where our focus is. Sometimes Yah uses that to bring to us a revelation again that there is something deeper than the pain that is on the surface There's something further down that we need to dig out. There is something more that needs to be revealed to us, and we need to look again. Sometimes that is the need for our trusting of him. We've all been at the place where I don't understand. Father, help me to understand. When the wound is open and bleeding, though it focuses our attention. The truth is that if problems did not arise, we probably wouldn't pray. And when we have become prayerless and self-confident, when we become self-reliant, and we start walking according to the dictates of our own preferences and perspective, Yah does indeed in those times allow difficulties at varying levels to rise up until he gets our attention enough that we begin to seek him, catching us early in our distractions, lest we lose our way. So our wounds very well may be Yah's means of directing our focus to an area that we would prefer to ignore. There are some things in the body of Messiah we can no longer ignore. There are things personally, individually, that we need to pay attention to. But we prefer to ignore them. Yah says no more. If we keep going through the same painful situations, if your hurtful history keeps repeating itself, Yah may be trying to point out an issue that you need to be healed in, that I need to be healed in. We're going to continually be given this test until we pass it. Now, I'm honest with you, there is little glory in our wounds. Children, I've seen my grandchildren do this. They will point to a place where they scraped their knee or a little scab that they've manufactured on their body, and they will draw attention and they'll point to it and say, "See my boo-boo?" They may have been healed over for a long period of time, but for them, if they point it out, it's a means of getting attention. It solicits the calming words of a parent or grandparent. "I think it's going to be okay. It doesn't hurt anymore, does it?" "No." "Well, then you're going to be all right." And they need that little sense of encouragement. But more than anything, yes, they're looking for your focus and your attention. When we as adults keep rehearsing our wounds, constantly pointing to the scars, pointing to how we were wronged by somebody, we reveal that we expect others to keep on wounding us likewise. Why do we do this? Well, it's the same reason. We want attention. Now, that may be not something that is at the forefront of our mind, but at least in our subconscious spirit area, we're focusing on where it hurt and what was done and what was said. And we keep rehearsing that because we haven't gotten beyond that yet. The outside is scarred over, but the wound still festers on the inside. Yah wants to put a balm into your spirit, not a bomb, a balm, B-A-L-M. He wants to put a healing substance into your spirit and create within you complete and total healing. So that we understand, I tasted that and I endured that and I was enabled to overcome that, so that when I find others that are in that immediate moment of this, that I can be a resource of encouragement and say, this will heal. This will scab over and it will scar, but you will be all right. And I will be here with you to help you to get beyond this. I want to make a statement, and it sounds strong, but the body of Messiah needs to hear this. We must get over let me say this again. We must get over the lust we have for attention. And I said it that way. There is in the body of Messiah a lust for attention. We have developed an entire several generation of young folks that have been trained to look for attention. It's not so much accomplishments. Much has been made about the participation trophies, but think about this for a moment. It's not the accomplishment. It's just the fact that you showed up, that you get attention. You don't have to achieve anything. You don't have to strive for anything. You don't have to merit anything. We will reward you just for showing up and let us look at you. And so we got generations that are in social media. Hey, look at me. Look how extreme I am. Look how confused I can present myself. Look how obstinate I can be, how obnoxious, how loud I can yell, how angry I can act out in the streets, how defiant I can be. Look at me. Pay attention to me. We've got to get over lust for attention. It is the soliciting for comfort for things that Yah would have loved to healed us of long ago. If we would stop opening up the wounds over and over again. The news media has long had the mantra of if it bleeds, it leads. We're enthralled with that is gory and that which is dramatic and traumatic. Television shows now that are considered the norm feature the grotesque, open bodies on the mortician's table, the medical examiner's table. All of this no longer repulses us. But the idea is looking for attention. We want to be healed, but we don't want to be opened up. We want to be healed without suffering the cure. Sometimes the cure is painful. The wound is painful. And you pour in what is needed to be healing of it, and it's painful. You remember as a child, you got an open scrape and wound on your leg or on your knee. And here comes mom with some of that stinging stuff. And we're crying out, no, is it going to hurt? Well, we're already hurting. It already stings. But once the medicine is applied, then the healing can come. We need to be willing to allow the balm to be applied to us. And once the healing is taking place, once the balm has done its work, a resulting scar indicates we overcame. Whatever pained us, whatever caused us to be broken, it did not stop us, did not kill us. It did not prevent us from moving on. Now the scars may say you're changed. And you may say, I have been hurt, wounded, and healed, and I got the scars to prove it, but here I am. I endured, and here I am, whole and complete, changed, but here I am. And you have to imagine that in this process, Joseph was scarred. Joseph suffered the rejection of his own flesh and blood. Not just mild rejection, total rejection. He suffered the humiliation of being a prince, a child of the covenant family and all of the earth. And he was then sold like a common slave. He had to learn to obey in order to survive. So here's the one that dreamed of being leader. And the sun, moon, and stars bowing down to him. And now he is learning to survive instead of fulfilling his dreams. Many are in that place right now because of the economic shutdowns and so forth. They had dreams, they had businesses, they had ambitions, they had drive, they had momentum, and they're trying to survive. He had to learn serving and showing honor. And he did that only to be falsely accused and falsely found guilty. He had to live in the squalor of a prison. That meant he was reduced lower than he ever expected to be reduced. So we see Joseph in prison, lost of his dreams, suffering abandonment, further humiliation. And at this point, no one would say anything to him for feeling hopeless. In Proverbs 13 and verse 12, expectancy drawn out makes the heart sick. Another translation says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. But a longing come true is a tree of life. Hope. Expectancy. Hope is the balm that heals the soul. I'll say it once more. Your hope, your expectation is the balm that will heal your soul. In Romans chapter number 4, verse 17 and 18, it says of Abraham, in the presence of him whom he believed, even Elohim, who gives life to the dead and calls that which does not exist as existing, who against all expectation did believe, in expectation, in hope, so that he should become the father of many nations, according to what was said, quote, so shall your seed be. Abraham physically had no reason to expect or hope for anything, yet he believed because the promise was that his seed would be as the stars of the heaven. And again, that it would be as the dust of the earth. And that seed would come forth not from the handmaid, but from his wife Sarah. And he so believed that Yah brought it to pass. He believed that he who gave the promise was also able to bring it to completion. And Psalms 33, verse 22, we read, let your loving commitment, O Yahweh, be upon us, even as we wait for you, or as we have hope in you. The word translated as wait or hope there is yachal. And it not only means to wait or to hope or to expect, but it also means, you're going to love this, be patient. To trust and to tarry, that is, wait long enough until it happens. The psalmist also said in Psalms 42, verse 5, speaking to himself, he said, why are you depressed, O my being? And why are you restless within me? Wait. Yachal, have hope for Elohim, for I shall yet thank him for the deliverance of his face. Healing is a process. The moment you put the salve or the balm on the wound of your being, it doesn't immediately bring the healing, but there is a healing process. Typically speaking, my physical body has a resilient and strong immune system. It's pretty rare an occasion that I come down with any prolonged sickness. Can only remember having the flu once or twice in my life. Typically, I'm able to overcome fairly quick. Over the last week or so, the COVID bug struck here at the house. And while it wasn't debilitating, and while it wasn't anywhere close to the severe symptoms that others have faced, I've had to just be patient and allow the body to heal, and allow my immunity to rise up against the attack of the virus and beat it down. And today I feel much, much stronger and much better, much more my usual self. But I'm still waiting for Laura to get healed. Why does healing take so long? Why can't we just snap back? The process oftentimes will take longer than we are comfortable with. But again, if everything was immediately resolved, then we wouldn't appreciate the moment of the suffering. If Joseph's brothers had shown up on the horizon and had quickly come to rescue him, that would not have fixed the immaturity in the young man. If Potiphar had got him out of prison early, he would not have been where he needed to be when Pharaoh needed him. There is the process, and you and I must be given of ourselves to the entirety of that process. And finally, a thought on this line is that you very well may become the balm that is healing to somebody else. Someone else's wound, their brokenness, their time of suffering, it may be that when you walk into their presence, or when you communicate with them by some means, that you are the healing salve to them. It will be your words. It will be your comfort. It will be the understanding of how you suffered in like situations, and now you're able to grant to them a sense of comfort. Let me read to you from 2 Corinthians, the first chapter. A little lengthy here, but hear me out. Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, verse 3 and following. Blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yeshua Messiah, the Father of compassion and Elohim of all comfort, who is comforting us in all our pressure, enabling us to comfort those who are in every pressure through the comfort which we ourselves are comforted by Elohim. Now, that sounds wordy, and it is. But the gist of what he had just said there is, we ourselves have received comfort, or another translation is grace, an endowment of an enabling power from the Most High has been given to us. And we're writing to those that are currently in dire straits and needing such situations. We are writing to you to help you to understand we ourselves have received an enabling power from on high, this endowment to overcome and to persevere and to endure and then to arise up. We're writing to you in your need to say to you, we have it and we'll come give it to you. He continues. The Elohim of all comfort, who is comforting us in all of our pressure, enabling us to comfort those who are in every pressure through the comfort which we ourselves are comforted by Elohim. Because as the sufferings of Messiah overflow in us, so our comfort also overflows through Messiah. Yah's comfort is the equal to the suffering. And if we suffer pressure, he says in verse 6, it is for your comfort and deliverance, being worked out and enduring the same sufferings which we also suffered. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort and deliverance. The healing that we've received, we pass on to you. The encouragement that we have received, we pass on to you. The comfort by which the Ruach HaKodesh has comforted us, we now extend to you. Verse 7, and our expectation for you is steadfast, because we know that as you are sharing in the suffering, so also in the comfort. We do not wish you to be ignorant, brothers, of our pressure which came to us in Asia, that we were weighed down exceedingly beyond ability, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, we had a sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in Elohim who raises the dead, who rescued us from so great a death, and does rescue, in whom we trust that he shall still rescue us. This man of Elohim said we were in a place where we just knew we were going to die. It was over. And we had given up hope of living, but Yah intervened and rescued us, delivered us, demonstrated his favor and his comfort and encouragement to us. And it's as if we have those things as a commodity now within our spirit, that we in turn can pass them on to you. Your sufferings, your enduring, your issues, your overcomings are not for nothing, but for something and for an intended purpose. Hold on to the victories that you've gained. Someone else may need them. Hold on to your lessons learned and for your insight gained and for your truth revealed. Hold on to those things because someone else is going to need them. It will not be for the glory of your rehearsing how you were wounded and reliving your pain, but rather acknowledging, I've been where you're at, and I know that this is what I've learned, and I've come to share that with you. Because what he gave to me, he is no respecter of persons, he will give to you. So we understand that there's a need of brokenness. We understand that there is a balm for our healing. And then we have this last item of myrrh. Now, there are two different kinds of myrrh. The one that is referenced here is a little different than the one that shows up at the story of Yeshua being born, where the men came and brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There's two different kinds. This one in Hebrew is called lot, L-O-T-E, lot. This particular myrrh, it's a resin that is scraped from the underside of what's called the rock rose. I had not been familiar with this plant, but it's a little close to the ground, a growing plant with 5 white petals, and each petal is stained with what looks like a drop of blood. 5 represents oftentimes the Torah, the pages of the Torah. These 5 books are indeed stained with the blood, the redeeming quality and calling of Yeshua our Messiah. And so there's this resin that is accumulated and scraped from this plant. The root of this word is lut or lut, and it means to wrap closely and tightly, to do secretly, or that which is hidden. In 1 Kings chapter 19 and verse 13, it came to be when Eliyahu or Elijah heard it, that is the voice of Yah, that he wrapped his face in his robe and went out and stood at the cave opening, and see, a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Eliyahu?" The key word here is that he wrapped his face in his robe. There's this sense of being wrapped in healing. It is said that Esther soaked in myrrh baths for 6 months in her preparation to go in before the king. It's also said that this myrrh then not only brings nutrients to the skin, but it has an emotional and balancing quality and effect. After we've been wounded, after we have been given salve and balm to heal our wounds, There's something called restoration and recovery. God does not glory in our scars so much. And they're there. All of us have them, physically, emotionally, mentally, relationally. We all have our scars. We do all that we can to wrap them and to hide them at times. But Yah wants us to understand and know that myrrh comes and is necessary in exile to bring restoration to us, to bring about emotional stability and balance to us. Myrrh is critical as an ingredient to keteret, that is the incense of the offering of prayers. Myrrh is a principal ingredient in the oil of anointing. I read somewhere that medical thought says that myrrh has the ability to tell your brain that you are not in pain, to reduce swelling and inflammation, that it's an antioxidant. It kills parasites. It heals wounds. It kills bacteria. So there is a medicinal quality. After you and I have been through the process of sickness and need of healing and the times of pain and suffering, after we've gone through what Joseph has gone through and our own living, Yah not only wants to treat our wounds and heal them and see them close up, even if they leave a scar to be healed, but he wants to restore us. He wants to renew us. He wants to bring about refreshing to us. So Yah knows our wounds and our pains. He comes to give us myrrh to heal, sanctify, cleanse, and wrap our wounds. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 51, the prophet said, "For Yahweh shall comfort Sion. He shall comfort all her waste places. He makes her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of Yahweh. Joy and gladness are found in it, thanksgiving and the voice of song." In Psalms, the psalmist in chapter 147, verse 2 and 3, he says, Yahweh builds up Jerusalem. He gathers the outcast of Israel. He heals the brokenhearted, and he binds up their wounds. Exile may wound us. Days ahead may prove to be wounding days. Exile is not a pleasure cruise. But when Yah gathers us, he will heal our wounds and dry our tears and bind up those places that need our healing, we need his healing. In Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19, Yeshua quotes from Yeshayahu, or Isaiah the prophet. He says, "The Spirit of Yahweh is upon me, because he anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to send away crushed ones with a release, and to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh." The prophet Yirmiyahu said in chapter number 29, verse 11 and following, "For I know the plans I am planning for you, declares Yahweh, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and an expectancy, hope in the final outcome. Then you shall call on me and shall come and pray to me, and I shall listen to you. And you shall seek me, and you shall find me when you search for me with all your heart." Unless we think, well, this applies to people long ago and not to me. Listen to what he says in the next verse. Verse 14, and I shall be found by you, declares Yahweh, and I shall turn back your captivity, your time of exile, and shall gather you from all the nations, from all the places where I have driven you, your exile, America, declares Yahweh. And I shall bring you back to the place from which I have exiled you, home, Eretz Israel. Joseph was robbed of his multicolored coat. Later on, he was forced to abandon his chief servant garment in the hands of Potiphar's wife. But ultimately, when this story ends, at least throughout the rest of the life of Joseph, he is dressed in fine linen, with a ring of authority on his finger, a chain of gold around his neck, and he's riding in the king's chariot. Oh, how things can change. Our adversary is laughing and pointing his finger, and he's remarking they're down for the count. They'll never get up from this. I've beaten them down. I have won. The body of Messiah. Who are they? They have fallen into the pit that I have dug for them. They're without hope. They will never recover. They will never rise. That's not what Yah's word says. He says that we will run and not grow weary, and walk and not faint, and that we will mount up with wings like eagles. Yah is the expert who knows how to take those that are considered but dead and buried and give them resurrection power and bring them out of the ground. Yah knows how to take that was intended for our demise and for our destruction and turn it into our overcoming and into our victory. Yah is not above rescuing those who smell like a pig pen. In Luke 15:22, such a one as this, Ephraim, the house of Israel, Joseph's own descendants, it would seem, come home to the father after living among the swine. And the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Go slay the fatted calf and let's throw a party. My son was lost, but now he's found and he's come home. Body of Messiah, don't keep staring at your wounds. Let the salve of Yah's word and the Ruach HaKodesh be oil and wine poured into them, and let healing come. Let Yah wrap them. Let Yah set them apart, sanctify them, and cleanse them for you. Hold on to your healing and share it with someone else. Let the myrrh, the oil of gladness, fill your being. Let us rejoice. There is more good that is yet laid up in store. There is a reason to have hope. And God is going to bring you and I to a place of victory. And for that, I am confident. Let's pray. Almighty Yah, in the mighty and the awesome name of Yeshua HaMashiach, all praise, honor, glory, and power, dominion, and might be unto you forever and forevermore. Your plan is excellent, Yah. Your way is excellent, O Yah. Your word is forever true, O Yah, and it will never fail. You are he that not only calls us, but he that has already had a plan in store for us and a destiny determined for us. And it is you, O Yah, that has strength and power within your being to grant unto us as we would request, to enable us to continue our process, our refining, our journey, until we bring to you the completed result, that you would receive honor and glory for all that has been accomplished. Raise up House of David to significance, to prominence, Father, to our time and to our season, and allow us to accomplish that thing that you have set forward for us. Bring healing to those that are suffering. Bring resolve to those that are bewildered and overwhelmed. Bring answers to those that have questions that yet linger. Bring strength and ability, Father, to those who feel weak and overdone. Bring encouragement to those that are despondent and fearful. Yah, we cry out in this time of Hanukkah that our light would shine, that the oil of gladness would be filled within us, and that this house that you have called us to be would be set apart and dedicated and cleansed of all that defiles. That this temple, Yah, would bring about a place for your dwelling in the earth. Live in and among us, O Yah, and bring honor and glory to your name through us, we pray. In the mighty name of Yeshua. Amen. Amen. We will regather at 5 o'clock via Zoom. Have your Hanukkah menorahs available if possible, and we will light those together and enjoy some time of fellowship. I look forward to seeing you. The link has been sent out. If you did not receive that link, please text me or email me, and let's make sure that you are able to get connected. Again, we look forward to seeing you at 5 o'clock, just over or just under an hour from now, about 45 minutes. We look forward to seeing you then. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you in a little while.